And the biggest change for our processes has been, is there an AI adjacent tool that exists now that we should be using to do something we've been doing our way for the last 10 years?
Okay, well, we have a lot of content to cover. I know folks will probably drip in as we go, but because we have so much content to cover and we do want to importantly get to Q&A at the end, we will go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. We're here to talk about lean games growth, and we're really excited to do that. We have an awesome panel. It's been a difficult couple of years for the folks in the industry. We've had a lot of changes, mobile privacy challenges, funding environment changing and cooling, a lot of layoffs and consolidation, and I'd say relatively stagnant industry growth. I mean, industry's still growing, but it's moderated a little bit. On top of that, there's been a lot of adoption of new technology. Web3 is big a couple years ago, still going strong in some segments. Now AI is taking over the world. It's kind of fast and confusing. But despite all this tumult, games industry is growing. Small and efficient teams can really get out there and delight their players, build strong, sustainable businesses. We have a couple of really awesome lean teams here today. And so that's what we're here to talk about. Okay, so who is here? First up, we have Hank, who is CEO of Random Logic Gaming. He joined in 2016, and he does everything from customer support to AI development. He's worked on nearly every aspect of the business. Welcome, Hank. Next up, we have Joey. Joey joined Candywriter in 2018. He's worked in many departments, including QA, social media, game design, UA, and is currently the creative director. Welcome, Joey. Last but not least, Warren, co-founder at CGO at Upptic, growth marketing platform, and a team of cross-disciplinary growth experts empowering game developers with everything they need to scale their game profitably. Upptic drives game growth for their clients, including Blizzard, Kabam, Immutable, and Candywriter, and have driven over 150 million players to the games they support. Welcome, Warren.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Hank, Joey, so glad to be here with you guys today. Two teams that I have a ton of respect for. You guys have done a lot with very small but powerful teams. Hopefully the audience has a lot to learn from your successes and maybe from your mistakes along the way, as few as those have been.
Awesome. So let's jump right in. We're going to go around the horn to start. The first question is, what is the current state of the games industry? What's stagnant and what's ascendant? Go to you, Warren, first.
Yeah, it's an interesting time in the industry. So, that's part of why we wanted to do the session. It's been a challenging year for multiple segments of gaming, and a lot of teams are struggling right now. So one sector where Upptic got our start that we've seen a lot of stagnation in is mobile. I would say it was the leading and fastest growing sector of gaming for some time. And depending on the numbers you look at, I think it's fair to say we're hitting kind of a stagnation period on this last year or two. A lot of this was driven, you can correlate directly to when Apple made the scan changes on iOS. There's a number of other factors as well, some of which Xander alluded to. So I think we're seeing mobile in a stagnant period right now. Web3 is another area where we do a lot of work. And I think, you can probably correlate how aggressive Web3 is growing directly to the price of crypto tokens, which have not been great for the last year. It's recovering a bit now. But I'd say we're past sort of that honeymoon phase of the glorious what ifs of Web3 and kind of dealing with the harsh reality, both good and bad. We're seeing real games launching. We're seeing, we've launched some Web3 games this year that have got over 1 million players, which is, not the biggest games in the world, but bigger than historical Web3. So that segment's starting to mature and getting more rational, and real games are shipping, but it's also valuations are getting less crazy. And the PC console is probably I'd say the exciting thing right now, as far as we've had a couple of glory years for games in PC console, and that's a sector where I'd say probably it's having its biggest boom and renaissance period right now compared to other sectors. So I think that's the three main sectors and view on them. There's a lot of emerging sectors that we might touch on later, but high level, that's my thoughts on where the industry is at.
Yeah, hard to disagree there, although we've had that conversation a lot of times, so I think we're in alignment. Hank, what about you?
Yeah, coming from a casual mobile game studio, my response to this might be potentially hypocritical. Overall, the mobile game space feels pretty stagnant to me. So many games are designed to engender FOMO or put an attractive user experience around Skinner boxes. This type of product is really good at generating revenue, but they also feel pretty samey and kind of boring at their core. I just think the difficulty of putting an engaging and fun mobile game around these revenue mechanics has shown itself over the last few years, and there hasn't been a really fun breakout hit in a little while, at least in my opinion.
A little more moderated from Hank. How about you, Joey? How are you feeling?
Good. I think the gaming industry is in an exciting place right now, with AI becoming a driving force behind production, both engineering and marketing-wise. I think we're starting to see a shift in overall consumer sentiment. Players are starting to value novel concepts and clever mechanics over graphically intense games. I think, to Hank's point, I think some dominant genres like Match 3 and these math runner games like Ebony have sort of stagnated the industry overall by conditioning mobile gamers with familiar mechanics. But as AI and tech advances, I think so too will the iteration of these games, and it creates fertile grounds for small and large studios alike.
Yeah, that's a good teaser. We'll be talking a lot in the third part of the webinar about how the technology is really innovating the space. To keep it rolling, cost of game production continues to increase as well as the cost of distribution. This is especially true at the top end with these AAA titles that are incredibly costly and time-consuming to produce. Going right to the core of it, how can we stay efficient and profitable in this harsh and competitive gaming environment? Hank, you guys are very, very nimble. Let's start with you.
Our feeling is that as the mobile game market has matured, it's becoming more and more difficult to find sustained success with simple games. The example I've noted is, would Flappy Bird have the same response today as it did in 2013? I don't think so. The mobile game market is just so different. And the added complexity and depth, new mechanics, additional features, all the engagement bells and whistles that we put in our games, all of those require art assets. Art assets require animations. Animations requires more sound effects. Every step you add just increases cost from all these different vectors. And it's really easy for budgets and development timelines to balloon if you're not careful and don't self-edit.
Yeah, totally agree. Joey, Candywriter's done an amazing amount, built a huge business with a very, very small team. Talk a little bit about how you and the team have been able to pull that off.
In terms of marketing distribution, I think we're in like a golden age of sorts, with UGC and fast-paced social trends reigning as the most profitable content in our UA portfolio. Marketing budgets for mobile games have been pushed higher and higher every year. But nowadays, as consumers gravitate their attention and clicks towards more organic-looking content, we've refined our marketing strategies to reflect that. Luckily for us, these UGC-style creatives are very cost-efficient, and they undoubtedly contribute to the efficiency and profitability of our studio.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Warren, we run a tight ship over here. How do you think about this?
I think I want to use this as sort of opportunity for calling out a few things like that I see. I've had the pleasure of working with both Joey and Hank and their teams. Obviously, AI is bringing a lot of opportunities to bring efficiency in teams and do more with less. I think, everyone's talking plenty about that. We're going to talk more about that later. But there's some more practical things that I see in some of the more successful small teams that I think both Joey and Hank's teams at Candywriter and Random Logic are exemplary at. Like the first is that through both of their individual paths that we touched on, like both of them worked in multiple divisions of the company as it kind of like rose up within the business. Hank now running Random Logic, but it's reflected in how their teams approach these games. Like bigger companies that we work with are very siloed. It's like there's creative here, UA here, brand marketing here, analytics here, business here, product here. And what we see in successful lean teams like Random Logic and Candywriter is like it's all a holistic conversation. And this is especially important in free to play, where like the marketing funnel never really ends. Like you're bringing users into a free product, but you're continuing to bring them on a journey of engagement and marketing. And I can say in my own work with both these teams, like it's very much cross-disciplinary approach. Like it's talked about for the full user journey. It's not like my job ends here, product's job ends here. So I think that's one thing that I've seen. And the other thing I'll call out is that both teams and other small, powerful teams are very quick to react to trends. It's another big problem in big companies. Like there might be a trend on TikTok, but it takes 3 months to get that through brand and everyone signed off on it. And by the time it goes live, like it's no longer relevant. I've seen with both Candywriter and Random Logic and their approaches to marketing, like if there's a cool idea, a trend, a meme, like they'll capitalize on it immediately and can get like performance from that, like quickly pushing it into production, signing off on things right away, being a little experimental and weird, trying things before other people do. And that's also been a huge advantage and something that smaller teams can leverage, that they can move quicker on things like that.
Right, it's a way for the small teams to actually press their advantage against a large company. It makes a ton of sense. Cool. Well, let's move on to technology. So there's been a ton of innovation in technology in the games industry. AI, Web3, VR. We also have some innovations in business model with cloud / like subscription gaming. This is a 2-part question, and it's gonna, there's a lot of ways to go with this one. But ultimately, what of these technology do you think will ultimately be the most disruptive in gaming, and how? And how can people begin to prepare for this disruption? We'll go to you first, Joey.
Yeah, we're using AI a lot over at Candywriter, and I'm a large proponent of it. Its implementation will surely disrupt the industry in ways we might not be able to foresee now. It has incredible potential in terms of its application across departments, but currently it hasn't developed enough to become more of a tool in our arsenal than a key agent in production.
Can you articulate what that distinction means to you, to be like an agent versus a tool?
Sure thing. So like right now, we're using a lot of off-the-shelf tools in their maybe first or second iterations, whereas like training models for Stable Diffusion or other more intricate AI tools has a very steep learning curve and takes a lot longer to do. So it just isn't there quite yet. That's not to say that it isn't coming very soon.
Sure. Makes a lot of sense. How about you, Hank? What do you think about the technological disruptions for gaming overall?
Yeah, I think we're seeing the future, peering into the crystal ball for mobile games is difficult. There's always surprises. I'd say for us, the most disruptive thing in recent years was Apple's marketing campaign disguised as a privacy push and the introduction of Scan, and how I don't know that anybody predicted how big of a bomb that would be in the mobile games marketing ad tech industry. That said, if anybody figures out something pretty cool to do with Web3 that both generates revenue while not feeling like a scam to players, that'll be very disruptive. And even longer term, I think AR will be very disruptive in gaming, but it could be years away still, a decade.
Snap just put up their new glasses, I think like today or yesterday, so we have that to look forward to. Cool. Well, Warren, I know you have a lot of thoughts. We spend a lot of time staring into the future of gaming, or at least trying to. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think the one thing I'll call out, in addition to what the other guy said, is like, I think we're just firmly in the era that if you're building a game today, like you're doing yourself a disservice by not just making it an accessible experience off of as many platforms as possible. I think we're just going into the era of just thinking about like these silos of mobile, PC, console games. Like all of our devices are getting way too powerful. And when you're developing a game, you just want to think about maximizing your addressable market. So it's kind of boring, but that's what I'm the most excited about. Like at least the concept of cross-platform is kind of boring. But we have these emerging, the devices we have like are all getting up to this base level of power that we can have like robust gaming experiences. And we also have these emerging platforms. So new areas of gaming, like with AR, VR, like finally getting to a place where people are actually getting a little more excited, a little more adoption. Don't build a game just for this. You'll bankrupt your company very quickly in most cases. And then a little distant on the future, but not too distant, I think we're opening up a potential additional gaming space as autonomous vehicles, I think, will come to fruition over the next decade, and just creating a new era and new screen for gaming experiences. So I think that's what I'm most optimistic about, is like expanding opportunities for gaming with technology right now.
Look at Warren getting his Tesla plug in there as usual. Cool. So a couple things. We're going to be going into building lean growth teams next. We have a lot of interesting questions here. We also have a poll to ask the same question that I'll ask our panel. What is the size of your growth team? We will run first to Hank. Hank, what's the size of the growth team at Random Logic?
Yeah, our permanent UA team is 2 employees, but I did include our excellent creative asset team lead in that, although they are fairly intertwined.
Yeah, and Joey, you guys run a very tight ship over at Candywriter as well. How about you?
For sure, including myself, Candywriter's internal growth team consists of 5 people. Of course, we outsource a large portion of our UA effort to the Upptic team, which has been a large part of our success.
Nice. See, that we got to plug in there too. Warren, we're kind of biased. Thank you, Jerry. We're kind of biased because almost the whole team is growth team at Upptic, but do you want to talk a little bit about the size of our team as well?
Yeah, I mean, we built the Upptic team with this idea of kind of like arbitraging skill sets. It sounds kind of cold to say it that way, but like my philosophy, like having built a few different growth teams, seeing what worked and what didn't, is like it's really hard to get a few people that are great at everything. So the approach we take here, we have like specialists in different areas. We have like our UA channel managers with different channel expertise. We have our creative team. Some of them are like UGC content creators, some are animators, some are designers. And then we have like the data analytics engineering type of people as well, working on data models, tools, etc. So like our philosophy is like for most teams, it's going to be super expensive if you're going to actually hire out all these expertise, or you get some generalists that might be super smart people, but they can be experts at everything. So not saying that like our approach is right for everyone, but yeah, we built this like 40-person total team. These days we're supporting, I think in the ballpark of around 20 games through that team, which obviously if you do the math, is like not very many people per team. But it's because we have everyone really focused on their core expertise and not spending their time doing stuff that they are mediocre or bad at. So it's a little different approach because we're a different kind of business, but that's our general approach to the disciplines of the growth team and kind of like using everyone's time optimally.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. And it's probably unsurprising that the folks in the audience are mostly very, very lean organizations. About half of them are 0 to 1 people on the growth team, and the other half are 2 to 6. And there's a few other folks scattered about, but that should tell you who we're talking to. I think lean games growth might appeal to lean game growth teams. Warren, next up, we want to talk about what is like the core position of every lean growth team. So we have a very specific perspective on this at Upptic. I'll go to you first.
Yeah, kind of riffing off what I said before, we divide our growth into what we call like the 3 pillars. So this is what we call the user acquisition or growth arm, what we call like the operational piece, actually managing the marketing campaigns, doing optimization, building the campaign strategy. Then we have the creative piece, making the fuel to feed the machine. And then we have the data piece for just quantifying, modeling out everything. So, growth, creative, data, and everything in marketing we think is boiled down to a mix of those three disciplines. And that's how we structure our team.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. Hank, how about you guys?
Yeah, we think about the key aspects of growth in a similar categories as Warren. You've got UA and data, and then creative is there, and then also try to think a little bit about product development with UA and making sure we have a product that we can market competently. And you need people that can understand those key aspects. That they don't necessarily have to be your one and only person contributing to those, that you can hire out. It could be one person handling that you think is competent at multiple of those. Could hire an agency like Upptic or consultants to be a little more specialized, but you do need people that have a really good knowledge base of how to analyze, how to grow, someone that's comfortable working with creatives, and you need somebody in your internal team that is competent with each of those kind of key pillars, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great point, Hank. I just Hank is kind of calling out product itself as part of the growth team, which I think is maybe a little counterintuitive, but it is a theme that we see in the good lean teams. It's like they're actually having product as part of the marketing discussions because they're acknowledging that role in the funnel and the relationship between the marketing funnel and the end product journey. So,
I mean, Hank, I'm going to get off the script a little bit. We've talked about this in the past offline. What do you think is core to random logic as an example, right? Because you guys have a kind of small team. What are the things that you were like, this is the critical component that we need to in-house versus what are the pieces that we decided to outsource?
So my previous answer to this question when we have talked about it has been, I think development is pretty important in-house. I know a lot of people don't agree with that. I know a lot of development is outsourced, but we try to keep our app developers on the team long term and get them familiar with kind of our product mindset and the features we're used to, the kind of games and genres that we're hitting, so that they can be more successful in their execution of the ideas and the strategies that we come up with. On top of development, I mean, again, somebody that is smart with creatives, willing to do the work and the research to see what's out in the market. I think you need at least one person on the team that understands how to ask for and understand data that will help make decisions.
Yeah, agree completely. Joey, you have a more of a creative perspective, right? So talk about how you think about what is the key components of a creative growth team.
I think Warren and Hank hit the broad strokes for this question nicely. Speaking to the creative side of this, I think the core positions for a creative growth team would be motion graphics experts. You have your social media producers and a creative lead to organize all the production. For UA, I know that having a couple managers, as Warren pointed out, to oversee the different channels has been very helpful. Those experts have helped us take advantage of all the new features each channel has to offer.
Cool. So this next question we're going to jump to is more about the sort of the individual members of a team. This might be helpful for audience members who are thinking about how to grow their career and also how we think about hiring. The question is it more important to have folks who are specialized, like one or two key skills, or have a broad set of skills? And then part two question, what are the skills? And this is not in the outline, but I'm throwing it in here. Does it change for the type of company and the size? Warren, let's go to you first.
That's a good question. I think, obviously Upptic is a little different type of business because we're not developing games. We're just that bolt-on growth marketing function. I do think my recommendation here can kind of be applied across businesses in gaming, especially if you're trying to be lean, which is you want T-shaped expertise. You want people that are deep in their core area of contribution, but can go across and have a working knowledge of those other complementary disciplines. Again, I can keep saying nice things about Joey and Hank. They're both great examples of this. They built their own careers and paths of regardless of their background and their path to more leadership roles at their businesses, they can have an engaged conversation with the data team, with the growth team, with the creative team, with the product team, and have enough working knowledge of all of those parts of the ecosystem to be very powerful, both earlier in their careers in more individual contributor roles and now in more leadership roles, obviously. And that would be my advice to anyone making lean team is make sure everyone is T-shaped, that they have a little exposure to all of the complementary areas and can talk to them, but then allow them to go very deep in their core area of ownership.
Yeah, it's a good piece of advice. Joey, how do you think about this?
Yeah, I appreciate the praise, Warren. There are pros to having both types of team members, the experts hyper-focused on one skill and those that spread themselves across disciplines. I think the expert team members often have a firmer grasp on new emerging tools, and then as well, the complications that may arise from adopting them. On the other hand, the teammates with many skills can adopt those ideas from the experts and potentially apply them in clever new ways across departments. I think both types have proven very valuable for our growth team. And as a key skill here, I think a transformational growth mindset is imperative. Understanding that some processes need to be disrupted in order to implement new long-term solutions takes a unified and well-informed effort. Assessing pros and cons, timelines, and the cost of these solutions is a key skill for all members of a growth team.
And you said something really important, the transformational growth mindset. That sounds like kind of woo-woo, but I think what you're saying there is like, it's an advantage to be small and be able to disrupt yourself. And that's something that when you're small, you have the advantage over the big companies, right? And that's the place where, okay, because we're lean, we have the competitive advantage. Is that sort of what you mean by that?
Absolutely. And like speaking to like my development here in the company, it's exactly that. Like I wouldn't be where I'm at if I didn't continuously change the way I was thinking and how we operate to just be more efficient.
Totally agree. How about you, Hank? Being a small, powerful org, how do you think about your people and how they should be skilled?
Yeah, we're the smallest team represented on this panel. So the smaller your workforce is, you need people that can handle a variety of skill sets. I mean, everybody's heard the phrase wear many hats in regards to small business. That's true just as well on a small game studio as it is any other small business. But there are some positives that can be found from having experts in a specific field. However, it does tend to get expensive. People that are experts, want to be paid what they're worth. And for a lean team, that can be a little bit challenging. In those scenarios, it might be helpful to go outside the company and look for consultants or agencies.
To that point, Hank, I think one other thing that I see both your studios do well in other lean teams is like, when you have smart people, kind of regardless of where they came from, like level them up quickly, like quickly give them more responsibilities within the company. That's win-win like that. You guys worked your way up in your careers, and like that both addresses that cost pain point of if you want to bring in the person with 10 years experience at EA or whatever, it's going to cost you more. It might cost 10 times that, making brand numbers, but like it might cost a multiple on the hire. You're not necessarily getting that same multiple on the result. There's also a lot to be said for someone who's worked their way up in a company, shown that they're a really smart, critical thinker, growth mindset, to Joy's point, and you give them a new challenge and just know that they're going to crush it eventually. There might be a learning curve, but if you invest in that person, it's probably going to be better ROI for you many times than bringing in that expert with 10 years experience or whatever from outside.
If you can be good at developing people, developing employees and their skill sets, then it's a huge benefit for the business.
So what I hear is, Warren, you should give me a raise. All right, got it. Okay, so so we're going to transition now from sort of how we structure a team to what are the new technologies and how lean teams can use the new technologies. These questions are a little bit out of order, but this is we're talking about people right now. And so understanding that we're talking about AI and many of these new evolving tools, what are the key skills that these growth roles you just described need to take and learn in this new technologically empowered world? Joey, let's go to you first.
Yeah, I think a new growth role I see across studios is sort of AI expert, as software is seemingly released every week. These teammates have their finger on the pulse of existing and brand new AI tools, and then obviously the skills it takes to learn them. With any and all applications in mind, the influence of these AI experts could potentially spread throughout an entire studio.
Yeah, agreed. We will talk about all the AI tools and specific tools that you can use, so don't leave. Hank, how do you think about this?
Yeah, I'm right there with Joey. AI engineers will have roles on teams, both on growth teams and also on content and potentially even development in the medium near-term future. As the technology around AI progresses and gets more and more refined and hopefully better and more usable, there will be a pool of talent, pool of people that will emerge that are just better at utilizing that resource. Just like any other resource that's available to us, there's a group of potential employees that will be really good at that and make it their focus in their career, and it'll be a boon to have that kind of role on your team.
All right, we're going to jump into the technology section. We will talk about not only AI, but other tools that we have used internally. Let's just open this up to the panel. What new tools, processes, and innovations have driven the most efficiency in your teams? Let's go to Warren first.
Yeah, so I would be remiss to not call out the hard work our team has been doing on developing the Upptic platform. So a lot of our teams do more for our agency style work, but that has been sort of the thing that we have really been focused on in the background for the last 5 years. And we did this both selfishly for ourselves to replace a lot of cost centers that we would have for a business, but also every team in games marketing has to solve the same problems and has to expend a lot of capital to solve these. So this is okay, you want reporting, you need to license Tableau or Looker and then get an analyst to build out 10 dashboards, and you're probably going to build that same 20 dashboards that you built at your last company, but it's going to take 3-4 months to get you there. And then you need data scientists to build models, forecast revenue. You need to license a DAM for creative workflows. You need social management tools. So we built here just our own centralized hub that does like all these things in one place. So when we quickly ramp up on a project, like this stuff is plug and play. And then now we've also started like licensing this to other teams. So like selfless plug, like if you guys are a lean team and you're trying to like do a lot with a small team, like we built this for this specific reason for our own team. And we're happy to like show it off. You can give it a try, see if it's something that's useful for you. But yeah, that would be like, I'd say the main thing we've been focusing on here is like, how can you remove multiple cost centers, get all these pieces kind of talk to each other in one centralized platform? We are extremely biased in this, but yeah, that's the tech that I'm personally most excited about right now.
Me too. If you want to learn more about it, go to upptic.com. All right, enough shilling. Next, let's go to Hank. How have you guys been using new tools and processes at your company?
Yeah, this will be a repeated theme here, but generative AI has truly significantly improved our ability to generate content for our games as well as creative assets. And this will only get better and better, and we'll become better at it over time. The tools will get more efficient. We'll get more efficient at using them and hopefully keep on going.
So it's not, again, not on the outline, but I'm going to push you on this. Like, can you give a specific example of a process that's been increased in efficacy with AI?
Yeah, so our portfolio consists of a fair amount of word games, and a lot of those games are sorted into categories. And once you have 250 to 300 categories in a word game, it becomes a little taxing to think up what else you could add to it. And yeah, tools, ChatGPT helps a lot with that, just providing a sounding board of ideas that you can then cull and choose what works in your game and areas that you may have missed. And then as well, we use some AI voice translators to kind of do text to voice for creative reads. And instead of hiring like a voiceover person, we're utilizing tools to make it sound a little better than the old school or text to voice readers of the past.
Joey, Candywriter has really impressed me with my limited proximity to it in terms of how you guys have embraced AI across the huge breadth of the business. Can you talk a little bit about AI and other tools that you're using to increase your efficiency at Candywriter?
Of course, I think you can cue the broken record right here.
Yeah.
AI has played a key role in our creative production within the past year. We're using AI tools to automate so many things, to make dynamic captions, to create imagery and music that help pace our creatives and content within the game, and to add new processes like character animation into our arsenal. So all around, I would say that the tech is just getting better, and then our utilization of that is just getting smarter.
So let's get really specific, and I'll go right back to you, Joey. What are some of the best tools, platforms that you're using across growth from creative through UA, through analytics? Like, let's talk about exactly the tools that you're using so the audience can steal them. We can increase competition for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. For the creative side of this, I think some of the big off-the-shelf tools we're using are, of course, Adobe Firefly. I think everyone is on that now. It's a very powerful imagery tool. We have Video Leap, which has a strong sort of thematic video alteration aspect to it, where you can upload ready assets and then completely alter the thematic look of that. We have Suno AI for audio and music. And then most recently, we have Stable Diffusion and Comfy UI to help train AI models that are catered specifically towards BitLife and our other apps.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So Warren, any other thoughts here?
I think joining this question and so our prior themes together, I want to kind of drill on Suno AI as a specific example, which Joey called out. So like for those who haven't used it, like it's like, AI music software. You give prompts to compose a song, like a fully fleshed out song, like that's production quality, lyrics, fully instrumented, everything. And this is both like a powerful, easy way the teams can leverage AI, but also a reflection of the lean growth team, which might not be super intuitive, but like, think about a classic giant marketing team for a game publisher. Whose job is it to go fiddle around with an AI algorithm and produce a catchy jingle for a game? Like, it's not specifically anyone's job in a team like that, but a team that's thinking critically can be like, oh, here's this cool new toy. How can we use it to increase conversion? And we use this a lot. And like sometimes for a lot of the bigger teams we support, they're like, wait, yeah, this is cool, but like, is this okay? Like, can we do this? Like, how did you guys do this? And it's not like we're doing anything special. We're just leveraging tools out there. It's just like, it's not anyone's job specifically to do that. But by being proactive, having a growth mindset, messing around with tools as they come out, you can find cool ways to increase conversion. So yeah, I digress. But you can use this analogy for a lot of the emerging tools within AI, because they're not going to slot perfectly to like doing one-for-one a job you do today, but maybe for seizing a new opportunity in marketing.
Right, makes a ton of sense. And we kind of preempted this question to you, Hank, because you talked a little bit about it in the question before, but is there any other tools that you specifically want to call out?
No, I'll just reiterate what Joey listed. We use pretty much everything he listed. I will say Suno is probably the most fun new AI tool to use. It's just super interesting, as Warren said. And then ChatGPT is really our powerhouse for copy generation, for content generation, almost anything we need, occasionally helping with coding issues, although that's being picked up by Copilot quite a bit lately. Little of that is specific to growth, but
yeah, I mean, we should have got a sponsorship from Suno before we did this webinar.
I'll also just say, like, very low hanging tip, like in the LLM era, like there is no reason you need a mediocre or non-localized app store description. Like that should be like the absolute base use case is like just playing with app store descriptions, especially, some teams are like, oh, we don't have a copywriting expert. It's fine. If you're just dipping your toe in with AI, it's a good starting point too.
Cool. So last be programmed question. We have a bunch of questions from the audience. We want to crank through this one and then we'll get to the Q&A section. So last question here is thinking about how you alter your workflow to fit the tool. So that's basically the question. How are you effectively changing the way you work in conjunction with these new tools to get a really outsized outcome? And we'll go to you first, Hank.
Having been around since 2014, publishing our own games, the new tools have been really interesting. And the biggest change for our processes has been, is there an AI adjacent tool that exists now that we should be using to do something we've been doing our way for the last 10 years. And it can be tough to recognize that we have a process in place that we've been following dozens or hundreds of times every year, could just be automated away. Once we identify that that's a possibility, that we should be doing that, it's usually pretty easy to make that happen. But the big step for us is recognizing that opportunity is there.
Yeah, it goes a little bit to what Joey said earlier. I forget how you said, like the disruptive growth mindset, where it's like, can I destroy myself to be more efficient? I love it. Joey, how about you?
Our workflows have been changing drastically. In some cases, we're seeing an output increase of about 40 to 50%. The AI tools that we previously mentioned have enabled our team to produce meaningful A/B tests with the click of a button. Testing different audio and imagery within the creatives has never been quicker. As we internalize the possibilities of AI, our mindset also shifts to account for them, touching back on that transformational growth mindset. I think that it's that progressive mindset that is what keeps our campaigns fresh and the viewers engaged.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. All right, Warren, take it away.
I think the big thing that's changing with workflows is boil it all down to one theme that encompasses like a few different workflows. It is really the era of model whispering or algo whispering. And that means kind of two things practically. You need people that like get enough familiarity with these different LLMs or different algorithms of the ad networks and understand what inputs to feed it in order to get the outcomes that you desire. Like it's less about like building a spreadsheet and doing manual like publisher optimizations, for an example, for UA. Like that's not really a relevant thing, or like good use of time anymore. Or like building like, hey, I'm going to put together a list of like my 20 competitor games and like make this a Facebook targeting set. Like that stuff is very low value and doesn't really move the needle anymore. It's just understanding these algorithms and how to coach them to get what you want. And then the other side of that is creative. It's cliche, but creative matters now more than ever. Like I think if you are looking to get a meaningfully different growth outcome from your user acquisition or other marketing campaigns, and you are not stepping on the gas to really resource for creative for it, like you're not going to get a better outcome. Like the creative is ultimately the input for a lot of these models, a lot of these algorithms. And so like, I think a lot of teams, really silo out like UA or marketing performance from creative. And now more than ever, like it's the thing that fuels these models, these algorithms within the marketing machines. So don't sell it short. For time's sake, I'll just leave it at that. I know we have some questions to get to.
That's our agenda. We did it in 43 minutes, which I was not expecting. I don't think we've ever actually hit our time limit before, but it's good because we got a number of questions. We're going to jump right in. David Foreman, is there a standard expense as part of the percentage of revenue that should be allocated to a growth team? I don't know the answer to this question. Warren, why don't we go to you first?
No, that's a really good question, Dave. I can tell you I experienced a really bad version of this at one of my past jobs, which was that marketing always needed to be exactly 30% of revenue. And so it just creates this really weird disproportionate thing where like if you're not like generating over a certain profit margin, you shrink marketing until it's just like non-existent anymore. And so like that model for each game just eventually shrunk each game into oblivion. What I think is a more nuanced way to approach it is like that there's like sort of a base cost to have like a core team for your approach, and then think of variable cost of things that you scale up as the game scales up. This might be additional like channel managers or like an agency partner on the UA side, might be additional production artists, but just separate out from that. Like maybe you have your variable cost be that 30%, but just know there's going to be like, kind of a minimum barrier of entry to have a reasonable foray into having a growth marketing engine for your business. And that's hard to cost out, like I can say the cost of hiring Upptic, but that's not necessarily one-to-one with the cost of building a team internally. But like, assume you're going to need at least like one nice thing about the post-COVID era is like you can get a lot of good fractional people as well. So there's a lot more like fractional CMOs, fractional creative directors, things like that. So I think that's another, if you don't want to go down the agency road, another like lean approach that people can explore. But back to that, the Upptic approach of like, you need at least one badass expert for growth, one badass expert for creative, and same for data. And I would start there and just make sure you at least have your core experts and then think of like variable resourcing costs under them. So that's the rough framework I would provide. Kind of a cop-out answer, but that's how I'd approach it.
Hey, do you have any other thoughts?
Joey, yeah.
Short answer is no other thoughts. I mean, it's such a difficult thing to say. I don't think there should be like a standard percent of revenue that's allocated to the growth team. I mean, if something pops off, you want to be able to capitalize on it in a flexible way that having a predefined kind of limit to your growth budget would not allow you to. And the same is true if something is flopping or not doing well. You want to be able to react to kind of the live dynamics of your product and your campaigns, and having a preset standard budget that you must follow kind of limits your ability to react.
How about you, Joey?
Yeah, I can't speak to the actual percentage of the cost for that budget, but I will say that after playing with over a dozen of these off-the-shelf AI tools, that they are very, very cost efficient in their integrations now. It's very cheap to start testing out with these tools. So I don't think that there's any excuse not to in a lot of cases.
Makes total sense. All right, Dave, bonus points to you for getting two good questions. I'm going to go to your second question in a row. How important are social media influencers to well-rounded mobile marketing teams, and how should we use them, and then how much we spend on them? We talked about spending, so maybe just like how important is influencers, and like how do we think of that now? I know, Joe, you guys do a fair amount. Do you want to start there?
We're kind of fortunate on Candywriter's side in that we don't really pay a lot for these social media influencers. A lot of it comes through organically, but they are extremely important. Try to push as much of that content as we can across all of our channels and foster those relationships by giving them all sorts of free content within the game and trying to incentivize more from them. They always sort of incite this organic uplift whenever a big influencer drops anything. So it's definitely always on our radar, and we are always keeping a watchful eye on them.
Makes sense. Warren, we've been spending a lot of more time and effort here than we had previously in business. You want to talk about how we think about influencers at Upptic now?
Yeah, I mean, at a high level, I would say to Dave's question, the importance of it really varies by the game genre and platform mix. Like for PC and console, like I think content creators are the most powerful force. Same for Web3. For mobile, there's many a successful mobile game does not have any sort of organic or meaningful paid influencer or content creator coverage. So that's, I'd say like there's a segment differentiation there. One thing that we've definitely learned, and I would credit like our Web3 team and games for a lot of this, because paid marketing like is horrible for Web3. So it's like you kind of have to refine these other methods. We have really, as we do more and more of this work, I think just like applying a measurement approach, like it's easy to provide a measurement approach to like paid UA on Iron Source or whatever, but it's a lot harder to, okay, we're signing a contract with 20 content creators and KOLs or influencers, and they're all posting at these variable times on different channels. How are we going to quantify that? So like we've over time just built out additional social tracking tools. So like not ad tracking, but just like tracking the content, which posts by these different creators are getting which kind of traction, working with the creators more to embed tracking links where relevant, where it's not going to like punish them in the algorithm, and starting to apply a performance mindset. I'm not going to lie, it's not like one-to-one. You can't plug and play and like just give your creators AppsFlyer links or whatever your MMP is and like expect that you're going to track everything cleanly. But if you adapt and kind of learn the best practices of all these social channels, there are tracking methods that make sense to kind of at least quantify apples to apples, like within that channel, like is this good performance for X or bad? So yeah, just centralizing all those in one hub. Again, back to Upptic platform, like for all of our games now, we have like the performance marketing, but then we also have like the social tracking tools. So tracking all the creator work there, establishing KPIs, establishing concepts of ROAS and CPI for social posts as well. That's how we've been trying to evolve our approach there.
Awesome. Thanks, Warren. I'm going to go to you again, Warren, with another question. Louise asks, can you discuss about strategies for evaluating retention in core or mid-core mobile games, e.g. setting a custom events and analyzing overall retention versus retention after the first of a tutorial, paid versus organic, etc.? I know this is a little bit distinct from the way we by default think about UA performance, but I'm curious, you've worked on some mid-core games in the past. Any thoughts here?
super high level for evaluating it. Like there's talk to other teams. Like there's a lot of public benchmarks for just like good versus bad retention for different genres. My two tips would be, one is just like assessing it and one is optimizing to it. So for assessing it, know that you're going to get very different behavior from different sectors of your player base. Like if you're building like not to keep talking about Web3, but knowing a little bit about Luis's background, if you have like a Web3 or Web 2.5 game, the behavior of your existing community members is going to be extremely different from like if you throw an ad up on Meta and bring in like a random new user who's never heard of you before. It's also going to be similar different behavior, like if you acquire people through like featuring, if you are doing like offer walls or some sort of like incentive to get people to try the game. My advice is make sure that when you're measuring retention, that you have sort of like an average boring player section that's indicative of like a typical net new user that has no prior familiarity. So when we're assessing retention in soft launch for a game, we will intentionally avoid doing like payer targeting strategies or deeper funnel optimization and just say, hey, what is like generic player or just generic gamer performance look like? And that kind of ties to my second tip, just for time's sake, which is like, if you are not getting a lot of payer activity and want to like kind of optimize the retention, map funnel events within your attribution provider and use those as optimization signals. So like if you have a tutorial that people complete halfway through the first day, you can increase the retention of your UA campaigns by just having them optimized to that tutorial completion event and send that signal to the ad networks for optimization rather than optimizing on the install. So it's kind of like an in-between area. Like I think everyone knows these days about CPI optimization and ROAS optimization, but doing this event-based optimization can be a good way to improve the retention of your marketing campaigns if you don't have a lot of purchases in your game yet, or if you're at smaller scale.
And you can use Upptic Platform's new CPA-based dashboards that just rolled out last month if you want to measure this. Anyway,
Alexander,
I'm getting them in here at the end. Last question, unless some more have come in and I missed it, from Jeffrey. With demand for deeper game mechanics on mobile to stand in part from more common strategies, how do you all think about onboarding and tutorials and or ensuring deeper mechanics are accessible to casual players? Hank, do you want to go first?
It's a really good question. It's something we talk about a lot internally. And the short answer for us is A/B testing. We apply the concept of A/B testing to users' experience at the start of the game. We'll test different tutorials, but also different first levels, different introduction points of features and mechanics that, sometimes it works better to have it within their first 5 minutes of being in the game. Sometimes it might work better on their 5th session. It's just a lot of testing and kind of figuring out what the audience that we're attracting resonates with and just iterating over time from there.
Does anybody else on the panel, Morin or Joey, do you have thoughts here?
I think Hank addressed it well.
In that case, that's it. We're going to go to wrap up. First of all, thank you everyone for joining us. Really appreciate everyone who is in attendance. We're going to give everyone a chance to sign off. Hank, do you want to talk about anything that you have fun that's coming up? If someone wants to get a hold of you and you want to let the audience know how to get a hold of you, can you do that?
You could always reach out to me directly. I'm Hank at randomlogicgames.com. Feel free to shoot me an email and I'll reply. But we've got a new game coming out in mid-October that we're pretty pumped about. Not that I expect anybody in the attendance here to play, but it's exciting for us internally.
Where can you get it?
Only on the Samsung Galaxy Store, it turns out.
Oh, geez, okay. Gramagram coming up.
Yep.
Joey, you guys got a lot going on that's fun.
Yeah, BitLife always has new and exciting features on its horizon. We have a new major update dropping in about a month or so stay tuned for that. We've also partnered with Good Game Studio to produce BitLife Go, a new app that contains over a dozen languages that is completely AI powered. So hopefully that comes out this year or first quarter next. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's an exciting one. Really, really putting the concepts we talked about into maximum practice with that one. All right, Warren, going to you last.
We're launching a lot of games here, so always staying busy here at Upptic. I mean, the thing that we are probably making the most noise about right now is, again, our platform. So it's like, we really encourage, especially like lean teams, like try it out. Like we're pretty transparent people here at Upptic, like with our tools. Like we don't like ask people to sign an annual contract or anything like that. Just use them. If you like using them, keep using them. If not, don't use them. But we think that people will find a lot of value in them. Replace multiple cost centers, keep their teams nice and lean and efficient, and learn from sort of our battles and our journeys and what's worked for us along the way. And yeah, that's what I'm really excited about here. And then also just want to thank one more time, Joey and Hank, like you guys as lean teams, we know you guys are super busy. So thanks so much for sharing some knowledge with the audience today.
Appreciate it. Had a good time.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks, everyone. Talk soon.